there guys, and welcome to another one of my reviews. As you might have noticed, today we are changing the pace a little. That's because I'm gonna do this review not driving. The reason is quite simple. Today we are testing the brand new Mercedes-Benz EQC 400 4MATIC. This is basically the first fully electric Mercedes-Benz the company has ever made in a series production. I mean, they did a couple of experiments a while back, including the Smart series, which are now all electric, and the B series, B class, which was a sort of electric car, but none of them were produced in massive numbers. So today we are driving basically what is the first fully electric bespoke electric car from Mercedes-Benz. That said, I am currently charging the car, and I'm using a fast charging. I'm using a 50 kilowatt charger, which is like the fastest I get around the place where I live. The car can take up to 112 kilowatts of power, but the infrastructure around here doesn't offer that kind of charging. So I decided to plug it in and do the review and see how much it charged. The moment I plugged it in, it was at 53%. The battery level was at 53%. So far, 5 minutes have gone by and we are at 60%. So I am curious to see just how much charge I can get in this car in about 10-15 minutes, as long as it takes to film this review. So what should you know about the EQC? Well, from the outside you will notice it looks roughly like a GLC. They are similar in size and they would operate in the same segment. So there are a couple of very interesting differences on the inside and on the outside. On the outside, you'll notice a different front end, completely different front end. And this front end can vary depending on the line you choose for the car. You can go for the AMG line, or you can go for the electric art line. The car we are driving today is the 1886 edition, which is basically like a special version made available for customers at the launch of the car nearly a year ago. And it's meant to be a throwback to the first car Carl Benz ever made in 1886. So it comes with a couple of features. So on the front fenders, there are a couple of stickers saying 1886. We have another one here on the center console, and there's a certain combination of colors and materials inside. So over here we have a blue man-made leather, as Mercedes-Benz claims it is. So it's basically a sort of artificial leather. We have Alcantara on the middle. We have the 1886 stitching on the back seats, and these blue color fjord blue trims are very nice. You also get rose gold inserts in the air vents and on the doors, aluminum trims, and everything inside looks and feels absolutely amazing. This isn't just a GLC, and now as you can see, the interior design is different compared to the more I don't know, conventional brother from the Mercedes-Benz lineup. So whereas in the GLC you have like an instrument cluster and an infotainment screen, over here you have a more similar layout to what you can find in the GLE or the A class. We have a huge screen over here. One that half of it is the instrument cluster, half is the infotainment screen. So quite a different approach compared to the GLC, which I repeat is similar in size. But from the outside you will not confuse the cars unless you look at them from the side, and even then the roof line of the GLC is a lot more straight than the one on the EQC, which slopes a bit towards the back. It's not as sloping as on the GLC coupe, but it is a bit sharper towards the end. And the EQC also comes with an LED bar at the back and at the front, connecting both the headlights and the stoplights at the same time. So it looks, in my book, I think the EQC has a lot of character. It's not the best looking car from the front, but it does have character, and I love this interior. I don't like the piano black trim I have here. It's plastic and it's kind of squeaking already, and it will reflect a lot of sun, especially if you have a sunroof like we do on this car. Of course, it will gather a lot of dust and a lot of fingerprints, and that's like standard with any piano black trim. The steering wheel is quite awesome. You have the new touch sensitive buttons on the sides. You can operate the new MB UX system quite easily. You can customize all the dials. You can customize the way it looks. You have a lot of very interesting options in it. I won't go through all of them, but on the electric models, you also have a sub menu called EQ. It's the same name as the EQ sub-brand of the Mercedes-Benz company, which shows you a lot of interesting information about the car and what's going on, how much charge you have left, which electric motor is running, where your nearest charging point is, how much time it would take to recharge your car depending on the charging port you're using, and so on. So let's talk about the technical side of things. So on the front axle, you have an electric motor. On the rear axle, you have another electric motor. Yes, the EQC comes with two electric motors. Each of them has 150 kilowatts. So that translates to roughly 200 horsepower. The total output of the car is 400 horsepower, and you get up to 760 Newton meters of torque out of the two motors. Sorry about that. Now, the way the car was set up is the front motor is set up to be a lot more efficient than the rear one. Therefore, the rear motor won't kick in unless it's absolutely necessary. So that will happen whenever you press harder on the gas pedal or whatever, the acceleration, the go faster pedal. It will happen when you're launching the car and when you're driving a bit more spiritedly. So other than that, the front axle will do all the work, and the front motor will do all the work, all in the hopes of making this car a bit more efficient. In between these two motors, you have a 80 kilowatt battery pack. That's the net power delivered, the usable power the battery can offer. I'm guessing the brute, the total power the battery can charge is about 90 kilowatts with a 10 kilowatt buffer, but I couldn't manage to find the exact specs for the car. Well, anyway, you can use 80 kilowatts out of that battery. So depending on how much the car actually needs to operate, the range will vary. Now, Mercedes-Benz claims that the EQC could cover between 400 and 470 kilometers with a full charge, according to WLTP testing. During my time with the car, I noticed that number is not going to be achieved. Now, in the car's defense, I never drove it in eco mode. I didn't drive it in maximum range mode, because you have 5 driving modes available here. You have maximum range, eco mode, comfort mode, sport mode, and individual. Now, they're pretty much self-explanatory. So I never drove the car in eco or maximum range mode. I only drove it in comfort mode and in sport mode at times. So I wanted to see how much range you could get out of it in normal driving situations. I didn't want to just, like, you know, hyper mile it, because nobody will do that in their day-to-day driving. So I used the AC, and the car is still fitted with winter tires, even though it's June. Well, I guess Mercedes had some issues with the lockdown and everything, so they didn't have time to change the tires. So all these factors added up to the energy consumption I got. So around town, I saw an average of around 27 kilowatts per 100 kilometers cover. So that adds up to almost 300 kilometers of range with a full battery. Outside the city limits, at an average speed of 75 kilometers per hour. I saw an average consumption of 21 kilowatts, and on the highway at an average of 125 kilometers an hour. That's the average speed I had. The energy consumption was close to 30 kilowatts per 100 kilometers covered. So depending on the kind of speed you're doing, you're gonna get close to 400 kilometers at an average speed of 75 kilometers per hour, or 260 kilometers of range at about 125 kilometers per hour average speed. Normally, I mean, understandably, the faster you go, the more energy the car is going to need to move forward. And this is not a light car. It tips the scale at 2.5 tons. So it's really not a light car. It is a rather heavy crossover slash SUV. I mean, even the GLS is not this heavy. But the reason for that is the battery pack. The battery pack alone weighs 700 kilos. So yeah, this is a heavy car, and you can feel it while you're driving. This car feels massive. Mercedes did a great job at canceling out every single noise. This is probably the most quiet. This is the most quiet car, electric car I've ever driven. You know, electric cars sometimes have issues because you can hear everything inside such a car because they don't have an internal combustion engine. So you can hear pebbles hitting the undercarriage. You can hear everything. So on this car, everything is muffled out. It's a very, very well insulated capsule, luxurious and well built capsule. So yeah. But when you drive it a bit sportier, the tires didn't really help out because they would lose traction a lot. Understandably so, because they are winter tires and the temperatures outside are into the 20s Celsius, and you could feel the weight of the car working against it. So understeer, pushing towards the outside of the apex and so on. It's not a bad handling car. The instant torque makes it a lot of fun in a straight line, but in the bends you can actually feel that added weight pushing against it. It's low, but you can still feel like the whole undercarriage just moving to one side while you're just riding on top of it. Around town, it's easy to drive, good visibility all around. Outside the city limits, it's very quiet, even at 130 kilometers an hour. So that's the speed limit around here in Europe in most places. Really good in that regard. So Mercedes basically set out to create a luxurious, comfortable, quiet car, just like most of their cars are. And they did it. I mean, this car feels like an electric Mercedes should. And I'm very curious to see what Mercedes will come up with next. I loved it. I think if you're looking for an electric crossover, it's a good choice. Pricing varies from market to market. I mean, some of you guys are watching me from the US where it has a certain price tag. Some of you guys are watching me from the UK where it has a different price tag. So I can't talk about the pricing, but most of the time you'll find this car is cheaper than its rivals from Audi and from Jaguar. So the e-tron and the I-Pace. So this could be a best buy. Of course, it all depends on how you're configuring it, how much money you're willing to invest in optional features, and so on. Charging will take a while. It's an 80 kilowatt battery pack, so don't expect it to be easily replenishable. Depending on the kind of charger you're using, it should take between 10-11 hours at a 7.4 kilowatt charger to 8 hours at an 11 kilowatt charge, and around 40-50 minutes at the maximum charging capacity this car has, which is 112 kilowatts. Right now I am charging it, as I mentioned, at a 50 kilowatt fast charging station. It's been almost 20 minutes and the car is now at 72%. So when I hooked it up, it was at 53%. Now it's at 72%. I had around 200 kilometers of range and now I have 250 kilometers of range. So I charged it for 20 minutes and I got 50 55 kilometers of range out of it. Do with that info what you will. I think it could turn out to be useful when you're planning a longer trip. That said, this has been my review of the Mercedes-Benz EQC. It's a very comfortable, luxurious, and silent car. I think it's a true Mercedes in execution. It lives up to the badge up front, and I'm very curious to see what the company from Stuttgart has planned for us in the future. Until next time, don't forget to, of course, subscribe. Leave me a comment, leave me a like. Let's get this video rolling, and don't forget to feed your passions. Ciao.